Cormac McCarthy hated magical realism, and in a conversation with Ethan Cohen, he said, quote, "I don't know. You were somewhat constrained in writing a novel, I think. Like, I'm not a fan of some of the Latin American writers. Magical realism. You know, it's hard enough to get people to believe what you were telling them without making it impossible. It has to be vaguely plausible." And I love this quote because if Stella Maris and the Passenger never came out, the McCarthy bros out there could argue that McCarthy never dabbled in magical realism. But if you want to make your Instagram feed more magical, I am posting daily educational reels and threads, so go check those out. But now I would argue that McCarthy dabbled with magical realism multiple times throughout his career. And I think what he's trying to do here is take shots at the Latin American thread of magical realism with Jorge Luis Borges at the top. And at times, Borges falters. McCarthy, for instance, is a better prose author, story craftsman, and styletician than any of the Latin American writers throughout history, in my opinion. But I also think McCarthy is somewhat bitter because he had to watch, for instance, Gabriel Garcia Marquez sell 50 million copies of 100 Years of Solitude, while McCarthy, who is writing better novels, could never even crack selling more than 4,000 copies of one of his novels. Even dumb books like Water for Chocolate sold like 5 million copies in a couple years. And Blood Meridian and The Passenger and Stella Maris are where McCarthy really dabbles in magical realism the most. In Blood Meridian, people always say that they are corporal beings and they are just humanly. But Judge Holden, for instance, is more capable than any human should be of sleight of hand. He can lift and carry a 2,000-pound meteor, over 2,000-pound meteor over his head. And the world record, I think, was like 631 pounds for a clean and jerk. That's today's world record. He's also a pale white individual that has no hair on him, but he never gets burned. His skin still stays fresh, even though he rides around the desert for seemingly over a decade. We never hear about him getting older, him ever sleeping. Sometimes it seems like he's at multiple places at once. And then obviously there's all the weird stuff at the end where he's consuming the kid. And the kid is maybe a corporal individual, but who the hell is the thalidomide kid in Stella Maris and the Passenger? And you could say that he is Alicia's hallucination. We could roll with that, but McCarthy puts the nail in that coffin of thought when he brings and he manifests the thalidomide kid on the beach with Bobby Western. And so those instances are where McCarthy really dives in to magical realism. But outside of that, in a lot of his novels, he's very fond of dealing with spiritualism and synchronicities. And synchronicities don't mean magical realism. Magical realism has, I feel like, another step or two above that. For instance, in a Haruki Murakami novel, where an author, where a character travels to a different land, seemingly that's corporal. There are a ton of synchronicities in Murakami's novels, for instance, but there's also a ton of magical realism. But in almost every single McCarthy always seems to put in a little bit of spiritualism into his works. For instance, I watched The Counselor the other day and read the screenplay. And when the motorcycle bagman gets his head chopped off, his mother pulls up out of her sleep, from this dream, like knowing that it happened. In The Orchard Keeper, McCarthy is dealing with the concept of werecats and, different timeline synchronicities coming together with characters. In Outer Dark, there's obviously the Triune, which is a group of supernatural beings. In Suttree, there are multiple vision quests that happen, whether self-imposed or at the end when he is very sick. And there's also kind of like that inherent spiritualism at the core of Suttree. And last but not least, in The Crossing, there is honestly, just through the art of storytelling, pulling us into fantasy, which McCarthy frames through different characters on the road, but it isn't all this logical, plausible universe that McCarthy's trying to act like he creates. Also, at the end of The Passenger, seemingly Bobby is hallucinating and he's kind of moving into this connected zone. But with a lot of McCarthy's work, it's more like delirium, more fever dream, anxiety type writing because McCarthy's aggressive prose. You look at a lot of magical realist authors, they don't pack the infernal punch that McCarthy does with his long sentences and his gerunds and his heavy descriptions. So what do you guys think? Do you think that McCarthy has more otherworldly aspects to his novels or more scientific? If you had to choose one or the other, which does he dabble more in? Because obviously he is a very realist writer that gives us these straight stories, but once again, he does add some science to his works and very logical elements. And then there is also the supernatural side. So what do you prefer and what do you think he did better at?